Welcome to the TryPod, where we break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. Winnie barbecuing alone to recap a really successful round 24 because Clarkey drove 3.5, 4 hours to go watch his boys play St. George, and he was probably pretty excited in the first minute when the Titans scored with their first touch, but it didn't really get any better for the Titans. So it's a long drive home for Clarkey. It means you've got to put up with me on my own, but off a really strong round. 5 best bets, we went 4 and 1. The only best bet we got wrong was Manly to win both halves. Manly won by 14 points, but it was 10-all at half time. So that's the way it goes when you play it that way. But I think the line was 14.5 on Tuesday. So I would have lost by half a point had I played the line with the Seagulls. And everything else we got really right. Storm led at halftime. We had the halftime start. Roosters won both halves much more comfortably, won by 24. We had the Cowboys laying under a converted try. They won by 40. And we had West Tigers catching 6.5, and they lose Buller during the week, and they still win the game outright. And you're never, crazy finish in that one, but you're never in danger with the plus 6.5. It was a wire-to-wire win for the Tigers. And Clarkey, let me get this right. He had Manly with an alt line, covered that. He had Roosters with an alt total. They got over their full total. He had Cowboys head-to-head, that one comfortably. And then he needed the Sharkies head-to-head, which was another wild finish. Golden point to end round 24. Of course, I've got to talk about that one. And I appreciate you guys coming through with the comments. Zane of Odin says he needed Sharkies minus 2.5. I mean, it makes sense going into the game. And when it's 10-0 Sharks, I'm thinking to myself, why didn't I play the Sharks the best bet? Remember on Tuesday, I always talk about my leans that didn't win. I leaned Sharks halftime, full time, or if I could have laid 7.5 with Cronulla, that they would have lost. So I'm thankful that wasn't available on Tuesday. You know, a couple other games, I leaned doggies, leaned dragons. You wish you took them, but that goes both ways. We've got to be happy about the fact that best bet record now is 49 and 49, and you're never going to celebrate the same number of winners as losers. But in the season from hell, to claw back to that, it's actually not too bad. So I'll be a bit faster because it's just me and because we had a late finish. Right. The implications from the minor premiership grand final, if you want to call it that, out at Penrith Thursday night are massive. The Storm, if you took the advice last Sunday, you like Storm, you plan for the minor premiership. That's pretty much wrapped up now. Minor premiership odds for $1.05. Storm's 4 points clear with just 3 games to go. Is it 3 games? I think 3 games for some teams. Yes, 25, 26, 27. And on top of that, Nathan Cleary. What I'm hearing is it's not season ender. He should be back for the finals. It's still not ideal. And the fact that I've got to start there because I've been talking about how amazing Cleary is and his form's been ridiculous since he returned from the hamstring injury. And did I jinx him by talking about him too much and how I think he's the greatest player I've ever seen? But I think it was appropriate what I said, and therefore it just goes to show how monumental this is. Even if it's not a serious shoulder injury and it's similar to the one Cleary played through 2 seasons ago, the fact that he's carrying it, it just seems like it could get aggravated at any time. Now, Cleary gone out with 10 to go and the scores were level at the time. That's not why Penrith lost the game. You've got to give a mountain of credit to the Storm to come into the Panthers' house. One of the reasons I liked Melbourne was just there's no certainty that Dylan Edwards and Fish would both be back. You know, they were only named in the reserves on Tuesday, which they would have been regardless, just to make the Storm think about it. So then you get those 2 all-world level players in there for the Panthers. And while the Storm were in front and led at halftime and cashed our best bet plus 2.5, the Panthers were roaring back and back in the lead in this one. And for Melbourne to respond, Munster is off friendly fire from Nelson, and it's Wishart of all people with the solo try. And then the winning penalty, the penalty that gives them the win, Jerome Hughes, I tell you, Jerome Hughes, because he is so fleet of foot and such a quick stepper, he absolutely is milking this rule of late hits. Like Jerome Hughes, when he goes to kick the ball, if there isn't someone flying at him, he just keeps creeping forward. He just keeps running because he knows the kickers are untouchable. Like it's smart. It's not bending the rules. But basically, Jerome Hughes is playing fearless because he knows. I see him receive late hit shots so often because he sucks the defenders in because he's willing to kick the ball at the last split second or pass at the last split second because if the defenders don't shut him down, he's such a run threat. And ultimately, that's what gives Melbourne the penalty to take the lead and to get a really big win in Penrith. There's a good chance these sides are going to meet again. Although if they finish 1 and 2, then it's kind of got to be the grand final, unless they were to both, let's say, lose week 1 of the finals. But they're still the best two sides, although I will talk about the team that played Friday. Penrith are that good that they still have a great chance to win the comp. And especially the fact that Cleary comes back, he's so professional and he can kind of fight through the discomfort. So you can't write Penrith off. But I guess the brilliant thing about the result on Thursday night for a neutral is it just means the premiership's wide open. There's no foregone conclusion that it's going to be a four-peat. Penrith still absolutely a chance. Melbourne may be the favourites now. And let's talk about the Roosters in a minute. But on Friday, Manly hosted the Warriors. It was hard to know what to expect out of the Warriors, knowing their season was, effectively over. They would have to win all the remaining games and hope results went their way. Basically, as I explained it to people who asked me what the Warriors need to make the finals, I said they've got to win 4 of their last 3. Cole comments, great result for the mixed matchup. See, we had such a good weekend, I forgot that we won the mixed matchup at $3 odds as well, which is pretty handy. And the mixed matchup was Sea Eagles, Roosters, and Cowboys to combine for 100 points, which seems pretty good to me. I liked those 3 home favourites. Only problem was we got an absolute deluge of rain across Sydney right during the second half of Sea Eagles Warriors. It was as heavy and torrential as I've ever seen it. To be fair, Sea Eagles handled the conditions pretty well and were too strong in the second half to overcome the Warriors there. The tries come in a little bit later in the second half, so it was closer maybe than the 14-point margin. I mean, it's 10-all at halftime, but 24 on the board wasn't ideal for the mixed matchup. And then we go across to Allianz, and it didn't even rain a drop during the Roosters-Eels game, but it was like a swimming pool. I don't know what's with the drainage there, but the field was absolutely soaked. There's just a massive layer on it, so I was worried that could suppress scoring for the Roosters as well. But the Roosters had their way with Parramatta. Sam Walker, again, is one of the absolute form players of the comp. You could see that the Roosters coming in off a bye while Parra were coming in off a heartache, that the Roosters want to get to a premiership level. You can't muck around now. Like, yes, the Roosters could have still won this game being far below their best, but there's not many games now to kind of hit your top gear. You have to be playing your best footy in September. And in that first week of the finals, I always talk about to win the comp, you pretty much have to win that first week of the finals if you're in the top 4. So that you can't just flick a switch. The Roosters look to me like a team that is aware that it's go time, and where the Roosters need to improve is defensively. And they held the Eels in check pretty well here. I mean, I'll tell you my hard luck story. Not only I backed the best bets and had some multis going, but I talk about when I'm really confident in a play, rather than putting even more in the best bet, you could just back more risky derivatives. So in this case, the line was Roosters minus 17.5. I took it to 29.5. So I had Roosters 30 plus at $4, and they're winning 38-8. They were winning, I think they were winning 38-4 at one point. It's 38-8, which is a 30-point lead when Teddy catches a bomb, and he's going to score for all certainty, and Mike Acevo denies him. And then if you saw the end of this game, Parra has the ball with like 3 minutes to go, and the Roosters never touch it again. We get a 6 again. We get a 6 again. We get to the end of the Parra set, they kick it, and Roosters played it, so it's another fresh set. We get to the end of that set, and the ball's knocked on by the Roosters, and it's another fresh set for Parra, and they score with 2 seconds to go. and foil my minus 29.5. That's my little whinge, my little sob story. But nevertheless, first half, the Roosters were up like 18 at halftime and won the second half by 8. And that's including Parramatta scoring a couple of tries in the final 5 minutes. So we did win our best bet of Roosters to win both halves. And 38 on the board when you add it to the Seagulls 24 that you can see on the screen there. That gave us 62, but we needed 100 out of those two sides, Seagulls and Roosters plus Cows. So we needed 38 from the Cowboys, which was a bit to ask. But thankfully, if we spoil ahead, the Cowboys got 42. So we got there with the mixed matchup. But before that, I had to watch my Finns go down to the Dogs. That's a tough one for the Finns, especially when you couple it with the result today for the Dragons. Although just another great point that's in the comments there from Harry Potter to put a bow on Roosters Eels. Oh, actually, I can do that later. The wooden spoon race is well and truly alive. Let's say that, and let's leave that to the Tigers game. So in Bundaberg yesterday, I didn't have a best bet. I had a lean to the Bulldogs, but I was hopeful that the Finns escaping with the 2 points in that win over the Warriors could take some momentum to this neutral venue, but feel the love and make the shorter trip and generally play well in these showcase games, as the Finns have several times before. Doggies, really hard-fought win over the Raiders, likewise over the Dragons. This was a possibility of a flat spot. And the game, I won't say it was in the balance. I'll say the cover was in the balance and the Dogs were in control. But for a long time in this second half, it was 18-10 with the Finns attacking. And again, the Dogs are so comfortable defending their line. It's amazing to me that when they're on their line, it doesn't matter if there's a penalty, 6 again, a repeat set. The Dogs just seem so calm and so confident that they can turn teams away. And the Dogs just kept on repelling the Dolphins because you get a try there when it was 18-10, it's game on and you're not covering the line anymore either. So it was kind of in the balance. But then once the Doggies got their opportunity, they were able to crack the Finns. We got some spectacular moments in the first half too. Loose ball, Adokar picks it up. There's not many in the world. Well, there's a few I saw in the Olympics, but not many footy players in the world, if any, are going to run down the Fox. I know he's not as quick as he possibly used to be. And I actually, now that I think about it, wasn't it the Hammer gliding past the Fox in Origin in game 1 last year? Anyway, it was that man, the Hammer. To watch him in a match race, and of course the player not carrying the ball was able to run faster, but from where Hammer was positioned, that's just a thing of beauty to watch him in full flight and to round up the Fox 5 meters to go. And just the way that the Hammer can get to top speed and then keep that top speed while Adokar got a little bit tired near the line. Tavio Ivido threw him over the touchline, but Fox got an intercept try later in the first half. And as I say, it allowed the Dogs to control this one, and it does put the Dolphins back on the outside looking in. As Ryan comments, the under cashed again. And this was the kind of game you wouldn't have felt too confident with an under. It was like, well, it was 18, I think it was 18-10 at halftime. So you get 28 points. Maybe even, I'm saying 18-10. Actually, now I think about it, maybe even been 16-10. Just to give you an idea of how close the game was for a fair while. But yeah, there were 26 points in this first half. So you wouldn't be greatly confident with under, but it definitely slowed down so that Doggies and unders trend continues. And it's because the Doggies are so good defensively. Chris Walker says the Broncos can get into 8th. Well, hey, that's true. The Broncos probably would have liked the Titans to upset the Dragons because the Broncos might need some help with the sides above them. But obviously the Broncos are looking at the Dolphins, definitely wanted the Doggies to knock the Finns off in this one to keep that path very possible. Of course, the Broncos will play the Finns in a couple of weeks. Then we got a great win for the Cowboys at QCB, playing the Raiders. Dream crusher for the Raiders. Probably had to beat Manly, and it wasn't that close in the second half last week to make finals. It's overachieving for Cam they made the finals last year and that they were in the hunt this year. They were my pick for the wooden spoon, to be fair. So they've had a great year. But when you hype yourself up, we can make finals. We belong, we belong with these teams. We can play top 8. But then you fall short and then you realize actually it's not possible. I don't know. What's the motivation between whether you end up coming 10th or 14th? And I get it when the Raiders play at home. You still probably get up for those home fans. But when you got to make a trip up north, they play a Cowboys team that was embarrassed, up 18-6 to Brisbane and gives up 36 straight points to your little brother who had key players out. And with your season in the balance, the Cowboys had to respond here. They dropped Townsend, as I called for. Clifford's one of the best on ground, much bigger threat running the ball, but also, in addition to scoring, had try assists and is the better option for the Cowboys. He's been carving up in Q Cup by all accounts. I think his team is at the Blackhawks. He's top of the ladder. But what took the Cowboys so long to figure this out, I'm not sure. The Raiders come out early trying to mix it with the Cowboys, but the other player that was a standout was Val Holmes, in the news all week for having a terrible game against the Broncos, but then also not being wanted and moving on to the Dragons. And he showed out. I think he had a hat trick in the end and ran for a heap of meters. And then Cowboys had a day out, and just as well they did, because we get over 30. Well, we get 38 plus points. We get 42, in fact, to cash a $3 mixed matchup. And the best bet as easy as you like. Then we go to Tigers Rabbitohs. And this was a really fun game as well in Campbelltown. It was ugly, but what do you expect from sides languishing in this part of the table? Buller was ruled out. I was gutted by that because I think he's a really important part of the Tigers attack. But they put the young kid in. Is it Morgan? Let me know in the comments. Sorry, his name escapes me. The rookie comes in. I think he's only 19 years old. Had a great game. Jai Gray's there on the other side. He's an exciting rookie as well for the Rabbitohs. But the Tigers weren't let down at the fullback position. And the guy that really impresses me is Galvin. Watch him, and he's only a teenager as well. And he's fearless, and he'll run it. He's so slight at this point. It's like similar to how you felt when you saw Sam Walker break onto the scene. And you got to remember when Walker came into first grade, he came into a very capable Roosters side with superstars around him and had a lot of great players. It's the opposite for Galvin. He's in a team that's on the back foot every week, that doesn't have the star power over anyone they play. But Galvin has a lot of high-quality involvements. And I do think about the future for West, and I think you bring Luai in, you've got to play Luai as a halfback and keep Galvin at 6, and that should be genuinely exciting for the Tigers. I mentioned Buller before, and you've got Coruscant in there. That could be a hell of a spine. I know it's such a shame, and I mentioned it before, that Yuto Kamanu's are leaving, but there are signs for the Tigers. Now, I was looking at this. I was looking at wooden spoon odds going into this round, and I found Parramatta at $10 because I had a best bet on the Roosters. I thought they'd definitely roll Para. And I had a best bet on the Tigers. Thought they had a great chance to play the Rabbitohs. I wonder what the wooden spoon odds are now. To be honest, I didn't tip the $10 or back it because what I eventually just decided, well, you can get, $3 odds by just mulching Roosters into Tigers. So I suppose you take that $3 odds, and then with that money, you could still put it on Eels wooden spoon after this round. That's assuming that they might still be $3 or $4, but it probably is a little bit shorter than that. It's very likely that the wooden spoon is going to come down to round 27, where the Tigers host the Eels. How humiliating for those sides that we are going to make such a big deal about that being the Spoon Bowl. Now, the Tigers are equal with the Eels, or will be after the bye. They've got the same number of wins. The Tigers have a much worse points differential. So if the Eels come out and beat Brisbane or something, which is possible, Brisbane's struggled this year, that actually could spoil the Spoon Bowl. So that's why I'm saying the Tigers would still be favourites to be wooden spooners, because the Tigers have to beat Para in round 27 and match Para's results the rest of the way. And it's hard to see the Toby winning in the next couple of weeks. Wins are few and far between for the Tigers. Boy, did they need this one. I've got Sop Story Part 2 for you guys. Now, you know I've tipped Tigers plus 6.5. So I liked the upset. You know I love my halftime full-time, but did I back the Tigers halftime full-time, which was 375? No. I went Tigers minus 5.5 points. And I also lost that when the score was 18-10 to the Tigers. They just couldn't put Souths away, and Souths score a length of the, not length of the field, but a 50-meter try with 2 minutes to go. And this was after Cody Walker was already off the field. Just brutal, because I had my $4 odds Roosters bet Friday night because I really like the Roosters. And then I go an alt line. In both cases, you can see what I'm doing. I'm not just telling you about these after the fact. I'm trying to share the way I think about it. If I'm really confident in a bet, like Tigers were a 6.5 point dog, but I moved it to minus 5.5. So you're moving a line like 10, 11 points. And instead of being $1.90, it's $4. Or Roosters were minus 17.5. I moved it to minus 29.5. So again, moving a line 11, 12 points for $4. It doesn't take too much if you're right for a late try or something to push it well beyond. Teams beat the handicap by a number of tries all the time, which is why I don't just play like alt lines. You don't just play like buy a bunch of points in every game, because especially a game like this where there's could be a higher amount of variance due to the fact that we didn't know if the Rabbitohs would really care about this victory. And to be fair, it comes down to the Rabbitohs get that try with a couple to go and get a set and actually make a line break. To me, it looks like a forward pass. And the Rabbitohs get that line break, get down to the Tigers try line, and then Murray puts Mawali over for the winning try. And I thought that was a pretty nice ball. I mean, if you want to call it forward, it's a face ball. It's arguable, sure. But live, I didn't, spot it and say, oh, that's forward. And the Rabbitohs think they've won the game. They all erupt in the coach's box, and the ref, big call. It's probably easier to call against the home team. In favour of the home team, and in a game with very little at stake. But forward pass call, which means West Tigers get a win. That's been a long time coming, and you could see meant a lot to West. How often do these Tigers keep a team to 16 points and realistically to 10 points with after 78 minutes? The Tigers were desperate in this one, and it showed. So I haven't done a great job with the comments. It's just that bit harder for me to keep it all rolling. Let's try and bring some in. Some people are just kind of chatting to each other. Colt, do you think Chad Townsend will play for the Cowboys again this year? No, not if there's unless there's an injury in the halves. Sports Music God Raiders are done. Yeah, and I thought they were done this week, which was why I backed them or against them for the mixed matchup and the best bet. Ryan, I love the Tigers here. Glad that they were on the right side of the bin count for once. So that's right. South's got a sin bin for a change. And Harry Potter Tigers will play Eels in the last game of the round. That's right. And West host that. So they have a real chance to win. And it's meaningful. You're at home. You don't want to get awarded 3 straight spoons. So that is exciting. So we definitely all want to hope that Para doesn't spoil that game for us by winning in between now and then. Okay, moving to today. So at Winnie Stadium, the Dragons played the Titans. Clarkey was in attendance. Sorry, I haven't actually said these scores. I should be saying. In this case, Dragons 32 defeated the Titans 16. It was a little closer than that for a long period of the second half, but a strange game. The Titans receive the first set kick. So Dragons get the first set. Minute into the game, boot it to Keanu Kinney, who skins them and sets up a try to Fafita at Jojo, and it's 6-0 Titans, first touch of the ball. You think, all right, we got a game on here. But then the Titans are actually on the attack again, and it's Foz's 300th, and I think it is Foz that puts a ball to ground that the Dragons pick up and take the other direction, score. Then the Dragons make a breakaway off the kickoff, a wicked bounce to do with the wind gusting the ball behind everybody, and the Dragons score. And then the Titans are trying to respond, can't get anything going, and the Dragons, I think, score 3 more tries. It's it's 24-6 suddenly at halftime. Basically game over. But then the Titans score. Jack Bird gets sent in the bin. So it was 26-16 for a long while, and like a 10-point margin. The Titans had all the ball second half. The Dragons basically didn't have a play the ball in the Titans half till the last few minutes of the second half. So I really did think the Dragons were running out of petrol fast. And if the Titans had been able to get one more try and breach that margin, get it within a converted try, I think the Titans could easily have won and would have covered the game. So I wish I'd played the Dragons, but I reckon the Titans, they're knocking on the door all second half. So you have to just say that the Dragons side that's been so inconsistent, some weeks it's a no-show, some weeks they're very good. The reason the Dragons won this game today was because they remained desperate in defense the entire second half when it would have been easy to have a lapse. That's the problem with the Titans. The Titans, that anyone can give up one try here or there, but the Titans will drop their heads and give up 2 or 3 in quick succession, which was what put the game a little bit out of reach. But for the Dragons, like Bird's in the bin, they don't concede during that time where Bird's in the bin. The Titans are getting set restarts and getting 12 plus tackles on the Dragons line, and the Dragons are gassed. And the Titans have got so many explosive players. Like Brimson came on with 10 to go. Foz's 300th, he did have a beautiful try assist. Jaden Campbell was a handful. Keanu Kinney, who I mentioned before, had 400 meters in this game. He's absolutely insane. So there's so many players that can take advantage of a tired defender, but it's partly the Titans' own fault. They couldn't get a try to really make it interesting. But I do go back to the Dragons are desperate to play finals footy. They had to have this win, and I think it is what fueled them. When the petrol light was on, it's what kept them going. And then you know the story when a team is knocking on the door, cannot quite get that try that they need, and have all the possession, and then the pendulum finally swings to the other side, and the Dragons got into the Titans 20 for the first time the whole half with like 5 to go and score a try and break the Titans' backs. But the Titans were playing for foreign, but not much else. And Dragons, much needed win. As I say, 16-point margin will tell you that they did it comfortably, but they had to earn it in the second half. And then we had another massive game in terms of the final season standings. The Sharkies 19 beat the Knights 18 in Golden Point. Where do you begin with this game? I do feel for the Knights because you fight so hard. From down 10-0, the Knights then were up 18-10. And up 18-10 pretty late in the game. We actually had that interesting decision where the Sharkies got a penalty and chose to take the 2 down 8 and cut it to 6, which only works if you can then score a converted try. And the Sharkies did score. Mulatalo only just getting it down millimeters in it. He's that close to the sideline. This is Mulatalo returning from injury. Boy, the Sharkies needed him today. So they get the try. Blades of grass inside the sideline. Atkinson's not a consistent kicker. Had missed a couple earlier in the game. Slots it from the sideline. That makes it 18 all. And any game that goes to Golden Point, both teams will always look at it and say, we should have won that. And both teams missed field goals. But what was extra controversial in this one, I mean, Kalen Ponga kicks a field goal straight over the black dot. It's instantly a penalty for blockers. So what do you guys think about this rule? To me, I actually don't have an issue with forwards standing where they want as long as they don't shepherd anyone off the ball. So in a field goal situation, everyone knows what's about to happen. It's going to go from the dummy half deep to the kicker who's positioned. The defenders want to be onside, but then they want to shoot out of the blocks straight towards where the field goal attempt is going to happen. What teams are doing is putting forwards in between those defenders and the kicker. And I get it if you're going to build a wall of like 3 or 4 players. I think they say if there's 2 or more, it's considered blockers. But to me, it's not like NFL where a blocker will, pivot or sidestep to stay between you and the goal. if anyone changes their line, I feel like it should be like shepherding off a kick. I give a penalty. But if you're just standing there, I feel like a player has a right to stand there because to me it looked like the Sharkies players had a direct line to basically run through and charge the kick down if they could, and they couldn't. And Ponga kicks it, it doesn't count. The Sharkies actually then get the penalty, go down, kick one. It doesn't count for the same reason. They had players in front of it. It actually, to me, feels like it's hard to execute now because you're throwing a deep ball. So everybody else just has to part like the Red Sea to get out of the way for fear of giving away a penalty. It's such a brutal price to pay. You go from winning the game to penalty to the opponent. Now they get a chance to win the game. But the other crazy moment was in Golden Point where the Knights made a clean line break. Who else? I mean, how do you think the Knights got 18 points in this game? Ponga, just with his moments of brilliance, he carries this team and he sets up a line break and Gagai's away and it's a 2-on-1 and it's Gagai and Ponga and Kennedy is between them and winning the game with a golden try. And Kennedy nearly pulls off the intercept, gets his hand out there and knocks the ball up. And actually, if Kennedy had intercepted that ball, he probably goes 70 meters the other way because he had it at such speed and in the complete opposite direction to the Knights players. It's a knock on. Kennedy doesn't control it, but he saves the try. Knights get another opportunity to kick a field goal. It was Crossland who misses. And when you miss a field goal, it's a 7-tackle set to the opponent. Sharkies get down the Knights end and make no mistake. And that win is so important for Cronulla to make sure that they finish in the top 4, which is everybody's goal. And it's so brutal for the Knights. They had very winnable games coming up where they would have been favourite every remaining game. And if they won them all, get into the finals, I reckon. Now they're going to need results to go their way. And it's just such a gut punch. It's going to be so hard for the Knights to come back from that. So it is. I think it's pretty tough when you're in a tough environment. You're playing a really good team. You down 10, you don't blink. You get a man sin binned. I agree with the call, Crossland, like cynical 6 agains that the Knights gave away with just seconds to go in the first half because they're thinking, well, we can just lie on the tackle here. 6 again means nothing because there's only like 20 seconds to go in the half. So I think that's a professional foul essentially. So the Knights had to play the first 10 minutes of the second half. Down a man, they hang on in that period. In fact, the Knights extended their lead in the second half because it was 12-10 at the break. And I felt like the Knights were going to win this game and it would have been one of the best wins of the year. And that close, but that's how it goes in these narrow ones. So that could be RIP Knights season. My dark horse Sharkies, they stay ahead, a step ahead of the Bulldogs and Manly, who both would have loved Newcastle to call an upset here. And Sharkies saved my man Clarkey. He was celebrating, messaging me that Clarkey's collect. And that's another $3.40 multi. Very juicy. Clarkey's got his way. He plays the sides he feels the strongest about. He makes them a bit safer with some of these lines. Well, this is a perfect example where if you just like the Sharkies, you lost if you took the line. But if you took a bit safer option, as we've seen evidently, head-to-head, got home. So maybe that saved some multis out there, guys. Hopefully it saved yours. Did I miss anything massive this game? Oh, this weekend, Colt saying Kinney was outstanding for the Titans. Ryan, the Knights, in the second half defended toughly but couldn't hold the ball. Brandon, you struggle to say anything good about the Dragons. I disagree. I'm talking about the fact the Dragons had no ball the whole second half, and a lot of teams would have missed a couple of tackles, given up some tries, and could have so easily lost that game. It was only the Dragons' toughness that got them that win and the desperation to make the 8. Sharkies made a lot of mistakes, as did the Knights. I did think more about this game. In addition to liking the Sharks, I thought unders is probably the play when you consider both teams kind of have very underwhelming halves combinations, and it's a very important game for both sides. But easy to say in retrospect. And when it was 10-0 Cronulla, I thought, oh, the Knights could fold here. Cronulla might win by 40. So it is funny how drastically different the outcome can go. Even when you get to watch the first 20 minutes, you can't always predict what's coming next. So I was quite thrilled that the Knights proved me wrong, because I always love to be wrong if I don't give it out as a tip, and gave us a really exciting game. And I just felt myself actually feeling really bad for the Knights that they missed out and that their season is going to end. Oh yeah, Sieb says big ups to Clarkey. He picked Avarillo was his pick for the Dolphins Dogs game, and Avarillo gets an intercept try, goes 80 and scores in the first half. And then he says, and if you want to add extra value, Cherry's got an awesome record try scoring, and Cherry did my pick for the Dogs, and Cherry scored as well. So Sieb says the multi paid $10. So Clarkey's had a great weekend, so he deserved the night off. And I mean, it was impossible for him to do this do this pod because he's very dedicated supporting his team, and it was another tough afternoon for him. But he made that long trip, and he'd still be on the road right now. But don't worry, Clark will be back. We'll see what he's got for Clarkey's Collect on Tuesday. I'll be back at it. This season is not over yet. There's still plenty of weeks to go in terms of the overall record, the overall profit and loss. You can't get it all back in 1 week, and that's not the way you should ever try and punt. But we're chipping away, and we're having really good results for. Like, I was looking back at the numbers now. 10 weeks we've won 70% of the best bets for the last 10 weeks. So we can't do much better than that. Obviously, we've had the shocker of all shockers to start the year, but we've stayed the course. So we've enjoyed a lot of the footy along the way. Glad that we got most of these right as well. And we'll continue to try and do that on Tuesday. I hope everyone has a great week, a great Monday, and I'll see you in 48 hours. Thanks for joining me. Lego.